Hey guys, this video is brought to you by Linode. If you guys are looking for web hosting, I've been using them for 8 years now. They power my website, codehawk.com. And you can see my resources here on the right. Like I only pay $20 a month and I have a ton of resources, thousands of visitors, and it doesn't cost me next to nothing. So if you compare that to Azure, AWS, it just saves me a ton of money. If you sign up for an account with Linode, make sure you use the link in the description tab below because you get a $20 credit. Hey guys, what's up? So in this video, we're going to be talking about the Deno web framework, really runtime. And I have a lot of questions about this framework and like what my thoughts are on it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this video together. And a few things about Deno. The reason why it has so much hype and build up for a project that's been in development for 2 years now. It just recently came out with version 1.0, which means, typically it's production ready. You can start using it in real world websites and projects. But the reason why this is such a big deal is it was actually created by the primary creator of Node.js. So we've seen over the last 10 years that Node.js has exploded in popularity. And many of the websites that used to run on Django, Ruby on Rails, they've switched over to Node because Node is just a faster runtime. Node itself is written on a technology called the V8 engine that was originally created by Google, and it's an open source project, but it's all written in like C++ code. And you can see here that it's what Chrome is built from, as well as Node.js, which is a runtime. Now with Deno, it's very similar. So you can add Deno to this list. So it's going to be something else that is created from the V8 engine. So using that V8 engine, Ryan Dahl has now envisioned a new type of Node project. So in his past, a couple years ago, he's criticized Node.js and some of the design mistakes that were made when it was being created. And like I said, mostly and much of it by him. So he acknowledges some of the mistakes that he had learned from along the way. And Deno was created basically to be a new and improved version of Node.js. So some of the things that Ryan was not happy about with Node.js is, first and foremost, was how modules are imported. So Node.js has something called a CommonJS module loading standard. And long story short, you can use like, without even requiring file extensions or anything, like this is an actual import. So this is importing the HTTP module in Node.js. And you can see like there is no extension on this, this module or anything like that. And even the way that you import it is different from the ES6 standard, the JavaScript standard of how we import modules. So Node is supposed to be JavaScript, but the imports of modules and all that stuff does not behave in a normal JavaScript environment. And when I say normal, I mean by like the ES6 standards syntax. So you should be able to import modules in this way using ES6, and with Node.js, it doesn't work exactly like that. So that's been an ongoing problem in the community. Another thing that Ryan regrets is that promises never made its way into Node.js, and by default, all requests that are made in Deno, they return a promise. And also one of the things he did not like was the module system overall of like how npm and the node modules folder gets created, and node modules dependencies are shared amongst each other, and it creates a real big problem for dealing with individual dependencies that could have dependencies that are conflicting. Basically, didn't like any of the npm module system, package.json files, all that stuff that's familiar in the Node.js community is gone with Deno. So with Deno, the way you import something is an explicit HTTP request out to like wherever that Deno module is sitting on some server somewhere, with the entire path to that server and the file extension. So if it's a TS file, it's a .ts, etc. And that's simply all you have to do. And then just a few of the other minor differences with the Deno process, like the build process is quite a bit different than Node.js, and then there's also a different error handling. So in some cases, it can be considered better error handling, like Deno will crash out on unhandled exceptions. So if you have any unhandled exceptions in your code, it will crash immediately. I suppose that's good. You can find those bugs a little bit easier. And then by default, like permissions and such are much more restricted in the Deno environment. So that's something that Ryan also regrets in the Node.js environment. That there were, I guess, a lot of security concerns because the file systems and all that were not locked down. So with Deno, all that stuff is locked down by default. So another cool thing about Deno is that the source code itself is written in Rust. So although it's built on top of the V8 engine, if you want to contribute to the overall source code for Deno, you just have to start tapping into the Rust environment. And Rust is a new kid on the block created from the Mozilla team. And it's been gaining steam now as a new systems level language that can do a lot, like basically C++ level power. And it's gaining popularity all the time. Also, another huge difference with Deno compared to Node.js is that when you write your actual code, like your application code on the Deno runtime, you're going to be writing all that code in TypeScript, where in Node, you were writing all that stuff in JavaScript. This is using TypeScript and it has first-class support, so anything that works on TypeScript should also work in the Deno environment. So is this going to be a Node.js killer? A lot of people are wondering, the creator of, Ryan Dahl obviously is a very smart guy. He created Node.js and learned a lot from that. And in the process of all that, he's now created this new project, Deno. And it's very much, solving the same purposes. So is it going to be a killer or not? So to answer that question, it really comes down to a lot of different things. And it's going to be whether or not Deno picks up a lot of community support. Right now, obviously, Node.js has a ton of community support, and Deno itself is not compatible with NPM whatsoever. So any sort of packages, NPM modules that are already created and written for you, they're not going to run and be compatible within the Deno environment. So essentially, all the NPM modules and those popular projects that we deal with day to day, they all have to be rewritten in this TypeScript Deno runtime in order for us to be able to tap into that. So any sort of pre-existing modules in the Node.js environment do not work, and that's a big problem. Both of the projects, though, do have a robust standard library. So with Deno, a lot of the things that you need to deal with, like spinning up an HTTP server, dealing with file systems, all that stuff is available to you. So it has quite a bit of a standard library there that you can tap into and you have to learn. And that's also similar with Node. So when we're breaking down Deno and Node.js, the question is which one is faster, right? So is Deno going to be faster? And they're actually pretty upfront about that. And to be honest, like in some cases they are. Like Deno apps behave better with higher latency. So latency meaning that if your server's on one continent and a lot of your traffic's coming from another continent, then that is considered to be like you're going to have high latency customers. And under those environments that Deno seems to really shine, through standard just HTTP requests, it's pretty much on par with Node.js. The compilation process that occurs in the Deno runtime is actually, there's somewhat of a bottleneck right now because the fact that it uses TypeScript to make it easier for you to manage your code base and all that stuff, that is an actual bottleneck when it comes to compilation because it's using a Microsoft TypeScript compiler internally, and that is not created in Rust. So like Ryan Dahl, one of the big things that he's looking at for improving performance is to rewrite that TypeScript compiler in Rust. So if this is basically another project made in Node.js's image, that means, what is this really going to, like, what type of projects do you want to use Deno for? And really, it's about the fact that, it's using modern day Rust. It's using TypeScript, which is a better option than regular JavaScript for large, complex projects. It's roughly equivalent to speed when it comes to Node.js. And overall, the module system is a bit easier to wrap your head around. Although I do wonder how tree shaking is going to be handled because anytime you import a module in Deno, like all the dependencies, everything is just into one executable file. So how does tree shaking occur, and is there going to be like a lot of performance issues for modules that share similar modules? So if you're looking at how to get started with Deno, it's actually really easy. Just open up Windows PowerShell if you're on Windows, and they have this command here. You just want to copy that and paste it into the PowerShell command. So once that's installed, what's cool is like you have these URLs that are pointing to TypeScript code here. This is a simple console log, just TypeScript code to console log a message out to the screen. I can actually run this directly from the command line. So like I don't even need to have an editor. Seriously, I can just open up a command prompt. And then you just say deno run and then the actual location of the URL. So you can see I did that twice, but that's all I have to do. I just say deno run and then the actual HTTP address of the code that I want to execute. And it will just simply execute right then and there. So I press enter, and then you can see it downloads the example, and then it says welcome to deno. So it actually executed the code. And you can actually, that's just a simple console log statement, but you can do the same thing with much more complicated deno code. And that way, like your source files are going to look more like something like this here. So you import very similarly like to the ES6 standard, which is the ES6 standard actually 100%. And then this is importing a lot of complex code, like all the server code that you need in order for that to work. And then you could just simply execute your code after that. But the importing in the module system in Deno, I think, is it's quite awesome, really. I think that could be a distinguishing feature, a major feature that Deno has that Node.js doesn't. So yeah, anyway, of all projects that are getting hyped up of late, I think Deno probably deserves the hype, and I'm excited to see what happens in the future with it. I plan on playing around with it some more. Let me know what you guys think about it, though. All right, so if you guys are trying to learn programming and you want to learn with me, check out my website, codehawk.com. There's a link in the description tab below. And I have a bunch of courses on pretty much everything, but I'm releasing new content to that platform. So make sure you guys check that out. All right, bye.